I just woke up this morning and realized I have nobody to talk to about the new movie Hokum. So I thought, what better way to spend my afternoon than sitting in the corner of my living room talking to you beautiful people about the brand new movie Hokum. So if you have nobody to talk to about new movies, specifically the movie Hokum, well, buddy, you have finally found the right place here at ZakIsCinema, so please consider joining here because that is exactly what we're going to be doing today here. So starting with the review, let's jump into the positives or just the things that I enjoyed most about this movie. And now this movie Hokum was definitely on my radar, not only just because of all the really positive early buzz, but I have been loving what the production company of Neon has been doing with horror and thriller, more art house related horror subgenre. They seem to be within the past couple years right up there with A24 for me. So anytime a new Neon horror movie is coming out, I am extremely excited. It reaches the anticipation for me just as much as A24 does for me personally. So when I was watching it, I absolutely loved and adored how this movie opened up with such a unique and atmospheric scene of our main character, played by Adam Scott, writing his book just alone, isolated, and in the dark of his home. And instead of a traditional narration or voiceover you typically get when authors in movies are writing their books, we see that he is writing this book, but the words on the screen or paper is being played out in this cinematic kind of way, which just immediately kind of pulls you into the movie, but then also pulls you into the story that he is writing. And it is such a creative way to kind of handle a not exposition scene, but an exposition scene for an author's work within a film. You usually get just some voiceover reading the text right off the paper or the screen, but I love how visually and stylistically a scene like this really shows the director's creative decisions, and a scene like this just kind of becomes part of the film itself, and it kind of sets the tone with what is happening on screen and with what Adam Scott is writing about. It sets this tone of impending doom right off the start, right from the beginning. And within this first scene, I knew I was going to be in for something pretty special here. And I love the book and story that he is writing. He is concluding this popular series that he has within this universe. And the scene or the epilogue scene that he is writing in his book is kind of mirroring the film's themes and messages, specifically with the movie's sense of dread, inevitability, and just having no way out and this impending doom. It ties his writing directly into the story we're watching in a really effective and really creative way for me. And from there, I found the setup pretty intriguing here. We are, again, following Adam Scott's character. He is our main character for this movie. And there's this setup where he is in this stage of almost kind of a writer's block mentality. And he decides to go away on this trip to a hotel that his parents had their honeymoon in. And he decides to finish writing his book there and then also spread his parents' ashes. And I love right off the bat, too, without any exposition, we kind of figure out and find out what his relationship was like with his parents, even though we had never met or seen them in the movie just yet. And I love the small details this movie has, specifically with this scene when he is getting to the hotel, going off into the woods to spread his parents' ashes. He is carefully spreading his mother's ashes very carefully, and then contrasted with how he spreads his dad's ashes, he just basically dumps them all over the floor, and that exactly tells you what his relationship was with his parents. Closer with his mother, obviously pretty distant with his father. So I love little details like that. And when I was watching the movie, I just love how this story feels like a thriller, mystery, novel kind of unfolding right before our eyes in those small descriptive details in this very tight central mystery. It really does, in the best way possible, feel like you're kind of watching this horror, thriller, mystery book being written in real time, but we're watching it in movie form. Like, it just kind of had that vibe of a new book you'd see at Barnes and Noble that is supposed to be this really great thriller. Seems like that in movie form, and there's tons of small little details that you'd get in writing form that we also get in here. So just the vibe, stylistic choice, and atmosphere were really well done here. And from there, we follow Adam Scott at this hotel. He's already dumped his parents' ashes, and he's at the hotel bar, and we just get the sense that he is this very depressed, lonely, isolated author and writer. He is talking to the bartender at the hotel, and just something kind of seems off with his whole presence. Like, he's thinking about something that he's just not saying. And this movie takes a really pretty dark turn pretty immediately. And later that evening, there is this storyline introduced where the bartender had a bad feeling about him, just like I kind of did. She goes up to his hotel, unlocks the door, and he is seen hanging himself and what looks like to be there for at least a couple minutes. And he is actually inevitably saved by this worker. And then he returns after getting out of the hospital about a week or two later, and then finds out this hotel bartender worker that basically saved his life and walked in on his suicide went missing, and nobody knows where she was. The last time she was seen was that evening when she saved him. So I feel like that mystery with the missing person and this author creates such a strong hook. It naturally kind of builds intrigue and helps to connect everything together. And from that point, we kind of find out a little bit more about what's going on and find out that this hotel worker was also last seen talking to this creepy old dude in the woods that Adam Scott came across earlier after he was done spreading his parents' ashes. And we get more details about the hotel, this haunted room that is haunted by this cursed witch up in the honeymoon suite where Adam Scott's parents were obviously at their honeymoon, and just kind of adds some more layers and makes this smaller, tight-knit thriller feel larger and more unsettling. And from that point on, I feel like this movie has incredible pacing and just kind of gets going. It feels like a really fun, effective ghost story, but in this instance with a witch, and more like a straightforward, slightly less metaphorical version of something like The Shining, but still has all that creepy, unsettling atmosphere, just like The Shining did. And surprisingly, I would say my biggest positive for this movie is the incredibly well done jump scares. I'm not someone who hates jump scares when they're used right and effective, but this film reminded me of films like Insidious and The Ring, where it's that type of jump scare that's not a false jump scare. They are quick, disturbing flashes of something unsettling that genuinely got me almost every single time. So I love that. Not only on top of the atmosphere, just the jump scares were super effective here. And throughout the story, I love the small details we get of Adam Scott's character. We find out through this backstory that he actually was messing around with his father's gun when he was really little and accidentally shot his mom and killed her. It adds this constant layer of tension and kind of connects everything to this underlying feeling of fear that is very present throughout this film. And I love this detail because then it makes you look back on an earlier scene when he was talking with the bartender, saying that this young boy shot his mother in the face, but he was too young, so didn't get prosecuted. Nothing really happened, and he just wished that that person was hung, he said specifically, only for us to realize later on he's talking about himself, but right before he said that, it actually just ties right into his suicide attempt. So I love the small details, stuff revealed later on that makes you kind of go back to the beginning of the film. Not only just an example of incredible writing, but I assume will help on rewatch as well. And I feel like the way his backstory is revealed is incredibly effective. It is direct enough where it lands very emotionally for me, but subtle enough to how it kind of connects to his current state and doesn't just like overdo it for playing a sympathy card on our main character here. And on top of that, the creepy side, the scare side of the witch is some of the most serious and genuinely creepy things I've ever seen take place with a witch character. We don't get a ton of witch focused horror, which this one makes it feel so grounded and unsettling and real. It reminded me stuff out of The Conjuring, or of course The Witch, or just a little bit ago with Weapons, like that serious, just unsettling take on a witch character. And on top of that, like I was hinting at, the pacing works incredibly well for me here. It balances that slow burn horror with enough progression to constantly keep things very engaging. It feels like a way more accessible mainstream version of a art house horror film from what you typically see with A24 and Neon, but I mean that in the best way possible, because for someone personally that enjoys both mainstream and non-mainstream horror films, this was a beautiful blend of both. But with that said, let's jump over to my mixed aspects I have for this movie. And to me, I'm a little bit mixed on the Adam Scott character overall. I think the arc that they're going for is interesting, but the execution feels slightly overdone at times. I understand he's supposed to be this depressed character at this very low point in his life and isolated, but I feel like especially at the beginning, the film leans so hard into kind of making him unlikable that it goes a little too far for what I typically like. For example, when a hotel worker asks him to sign a book for his little son, he just shuts him down immediately, says no, and walks away. Like, just no room for any kind of sympathy there from anyone in your audience, and it paints him in a very negative light. And I get that that's the point, but with another example of another hotel worker talking with him, and as the dude's talking, Adam Scott is completely uninterested in what he's saying, starts to hold this spoon in a candle and then just burns the dude's hand out of nowhere. And at that point, he just doesn't come off as a flawed character. He comes off as almost unnecessarily cruel. So when you get him in these scary predicaments, I obviously want to see him get through this, but I'd imagine the movie would be a little bit better if I had just a little bit of sympathy for him and they didn't completely disregard that at the beginning. And again, I get it's meant to set up growth, which it does later on, but I think they pushed it just a little too far, which kind of makes it harder to stay invested in the character early on, even though I was still invested in the story. So moving on from that, another mixed element for me is the ending, specifically right after the climax and third act. We later find out specifically this reveal in the hospital room that Adam Scott is in after the events of the film just concluded, where that worker that Adam Scott just burned his hand earlier in the film, he admits that he spiked his drink that night before Adam Scott's suicide with mushrooms. And that moment to me feels like it comes out of nowhere and doesn't really add anything meaningful to the story. It's presented like this big revelation, but it doesn't actually reveal or recontextualize anything because all the scary stuff he would have been off the mushrooms for. So it doesn't even play in the fact with ambiguity's sake of, was this all in his head? Was this real? Was it a mix of both? And then I'm thinking, okay, did he try to kill himself because of the mushrooms? Was he always going to do that? Does it really even change anything? So I just don't understand that point, and it stuck out to me because it's basically the final note. It just kind of raises questions that don't really feel that important, and whether that influenced his actions or not, it just doesn't really give me a satisfying reason for including it in the first place. And on top of that, I really enjoyed the mystery surrounding the hotel, this witch, and its workers, but I do wish we spent maybe a little bit more time developing the hotel side specifically and the hotel staff specifically as well. The one reveal with one of the workers killing the missing girl girl and hiding her in the honeymoon suite, putting her down in the basement too, and just to find out that this hotel worker got this girl pregnant but didn't want his wife and family to find out, so he just kills her and locks her up in there. It's incredibly dark, interesting, and a great reveal that just adds to the story super, super well, but it feels slightly underdeveloped, and to me, I wouldn't have minded a slightly longer runtime if it meant fleshing out that kind of side of things and its history and the employees a bit more, because the reveal is impactful, but I imagine it'd be even crazier if we got to spend some more time with some of these characters. So a little bit mixed on that. But besides those things, I don't really have any inherent straight out negatives, because overall, the movie Hokum is a creepy, atmospheric ghost story that blends psychological horror with a strong central mystery, elevated by its unique storytelling approach and unsettling tone, even if some character choices and late reveals don't fully land. So for my rating for this movie, this is a movie that I adored, and despite some of my mixed feelings, still really, really love and can't wait to watch it again. So once it comes out on physical media, I am buying that, and I'd be happy paying full price, and I think this is one that you guys should go check out and support, and also check out when it comes to VOD. So you guys have my thoughts here on the movie Hokum. Please down below let me know, did you check out Hokum? What did you think about it? Feel free to leave your thoughts and feelings down below here, but that's about it. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, so thank you so much, and yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.